Could we have commissioners please check in? Yep. I'd like to call the Butte-Silver Bowl Council of Commissioners regular meeting for Wednesday, June 7th, 2023 to order. Clerk, can we please?
12 present, 0 absent.
12 present, 0 absent. Commissioner Soares, could you lead us in the prayer and the pledge?
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, fellow commissioners. Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which will greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver Bow. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes for May 17th. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I move to approve the minutes from the May 17th, 2023 regular meeting.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
12 yea, 0 nay.
12 yea, 0 nay. Motion passes. Motion passes. Moving on to items not addressed on the agenda tonight, we do have a suspension of the rules. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. In accordance with the provisions of Section 6 of Rule 6 of the Rules of Business of the Council of Commissioners of the City and County of Butte-Silver Bow, State of Montana, the Council hereby finds that an emergency condition exists which requires that the Council rules be suspended to allow ordinance number 2023-05 to be added to the agenda of the June 7th, 2023 regular meeting of the Council. The reason for the suspension is as follows. Ordinance number 2023-5 is an emergency ordinance to repeal Section 12.17.060 of the Butte-Silver Bow Municipal Code, BSBMC, which requires a payment of $700 for the temporary use of the right-of-way for the placement of a parklet or pedlet for each season a parklet or pedlet is placed in the right-of-way. Although this emergency ordinance was not submitted by the deadline for the June 7th, 2023 regular meeting, Communication 2023-293 was submitted by the deadline and requested the suspension of this parklet pedlet fee in order to be able to have the authorization to not impose the $700 fee as set forth in Section 12.17.060 of the BSBMC in the time for individuals interested in placing a parklet pedlet in the right-of-way during this season. A request is being made to add ordinance number 2023-05 to the June 7th, 2023 regular council meeting. Based upon the foregoing and to allow this matter to be acted upon, the council hereby finds that an emergency exists which requires the suspension of council rules to add ordinance number 2023-05 to the agenda for the June 7th, 2023 regular meeting. At this time, I make a motion. I move to approve the suspension of the rules to consider placing ordinance number 2023-05 on the agenda at the June 7th, 2023 regular meeting.
We have a motion and a second to add Council Bill number 2023-05 to tonight's agenda. Is there anything on the question? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I'm not opposed to this, but I find it disturbing a little bit when we get these like 2 o'clock on game day. And, you know, a lot of us have other occupations we do, and we usually read the agenda and go through it. And we haven't had many of these, but I will support this, but I would ask in the future that anything like this happens, we have a little pre-information. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher, and I'll just kind of add a little narrative to that. I did put a communication in asking to forgive the $700 fee on the council agenda, which we were looking to act up on tonight, but based on working with the county attorney to be able to forgive these fees and actually not take these fees in, we needed to do an ordinance change on this that went along there. It wasn't to not inform. It was it essentially goes along with what my communication was, but we needed to do it properly and legally here. So that was the reason for the late, I guess, put onto tonight's agenda. So anyhow, that's the explanation in short. Okay, but thank you for that, and I agree. All right. Yes, Commissioner Mankins.
So, thank you, Chief Executive. So with the, that it was in judiciary for several weeks, I remember, a month ago, and not opposed by anyone at that time that stepped up or was informed with this. I just don't know how this is a suspension of the rules at this time. I think I would piggyback off of Commissioner Fisher on a, you're in support of something, but after it's been sitting in judiciary and it had to get to here, that we had nobody speak on it at that time, it seems that would have been the proper channels instead of having it come to a 2 p.m. Again, as Commissioner Fisher said, that we're all working, doing other things. I don't see why this is such a suspension of the rules, and this is a dire need. If everybody had their opportunity for several weeks now, prior to this, to come up, talk about it, hold it, leave it in judiciary until everybody felt that it was right, if it was such just dire needs. I just don't see this to be a suspension of the rules. I mean, it seems like we're not on the same playing field. I see some things that are emergency that are suspension of the rules, but this doesn't seem suspension of the rules today. I mean.
Thank you, Commissioner Mankins. I believe that County Attorney Joyce would like to speak to this a little bit.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Commissioner Mankins, what was in the judiciary within the last month or so was a different amendment to the same ordinance. That amendment was adding a penalty to people that don't obtain a parklet or pedlet permit prior to placing one in the right-of-way. So that it was just an amendment it was adding a section to that ordinance to add a penalty section so that the Public Works Department had an ability to regulate people that put those things in the right-of-way and be able to issue some kind of a penalty if you fail to get the permit. This particular request is now based on a request by the Chief Executive to review the regulatory fee that's attached to obtaining a parklet or pedlet, which currently in the ordinance is $700. And as he indicated, he put in a communication to be able to suspend that fee. But since it's part of a specific ordinance, in order to legally do that, you have to amend the ordinance. So this is a request to have an emergency ordinance put in place for 90 days to give the governing body the opportunity to review that fee and determine whether or not they want to change it or do something different. And in order to get this emergency ordinance passed as soon as possible, in order to allow people who want to have a parklet or pedlet for this season, that's the reason for the emergency suspension of the rules, so that the emergency ordinance could be placed on tonight's agenda, because the season for parklets and pedlets is now or fast approaching.
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce. Follow-up, Commissioner Mankins.
So County Attorney Joyce, you stated that there's 90 days that this could stay suspended. in the ordinance so for this body to review that, so would that put us into the end of September, all the way through summer?
Commissioner Mankins, County Attorney Joyce.
Yes, Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Menkins, an emergency ordinance by law is effective for 90 days unless repealed earlier by the governing body. So the maximum period is 90 days, but it could be repealed earlier by this body if you came up with something different. But it would make sense to have it go through this season, because if you are going to have a final amendment to an ordinance, you'd have to go through the regular ordinance process, which, as you know, takes about 5 weeks, and if you had a public hearing on it, it would take a little bit longer.
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce. Commissioner Mankins, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense, but where this body is at with it, it could be till the end of September, and then there would be and it'd be through the summer where you'd want to have a pedlet or park or a chair out on front of your sidewalk. So with that being said, I mean,
Commissioner Mankins, this would require them to follow all other provisions of the ordinance. They would need to be able to provide that they have insurance. They'd have to apply for the permit, all those things, so that it's still enforceable upon what's going on with this. What we're looking at is the fees that went along with this. And there's been some information that's come forward a little bit about what MDT has charged Butte-Silver Bow over the last few years, and is it the same as what they do in other communities? And we're vetting that out, because it seems like there may be some inconsistencies, which drove some of the conversation on why we had some of the fees that we had. Commissioner Mankins.
so then we were told at the judiciary that we had 350 to the state and 350 for Butte-Silver Bow, and that was online with what other counties or cities were charged at that time.
Commissioner Mankins, as we've found, that was consistent with what we were being charged in Butte-Silver Bow. We are not 100% clear, but we believe that they may not be charging MDT fees to local municipalities in other communities. And so that is part of the reason why we think there's inconsistencies with MDT's rules on different communities. Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. So what I get out of this is basically, it's kind of, I'm not saying nullified, there still is some of the provisions that have to be answered and all that, and that basically it's going to be addressed and all that, and I think it's very important that we do handle it and get it firm, because it was kind of a short time deal, so I think this is going to work out in promoting still Uptown Butte, and basically that's what this body's here for, is to help the merchants and all that, and communicate with them, and develop these friendships so that the merchants can also thrive. So I think it's a great idea.
Thank you, Commissioner, and Commissioner Sorge, and then Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. You know, I think we should get it straightened out, but again, I didn't even get an email, or I didn't get a copy of it. So it's kind of hard for me to even partake when I haven't seen it.
Okay.
You know, so it's,
Yeah. We
I'm
apologize
just-
for
I'm
that,
just throwing
Mr.
that out there
Sorge.
that,
No.
you know, it's pretty hard to partake when you don't know what's.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Mr. Chief Executive.
Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you. I'm just going to call for the vote, because we can decide and discuss this further on. There's going to be plenty more times to get everyone's thoughts on this issue. So I'm calling for the vote.
We have a call for the vote. Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
12 yea, 0 nay.
12 yeas, 0 nays, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to the Chief Executive's report. we can just kind of talk about it. It's been quite a adventurous week that we've had here in the courthouse, and I know that there's been a lot of emotion and talk about our proclamation with Pride Week, and then making a decision to cancel an event at the library. And I want everyone to know that none of this was taken lightly, and it was I had reached out to the library director on Tuesday via email asking about this event because there was concerns about did it violate state law in House Bill 359. Much of the language that Ms. Jewart, who is going to be the presenter, put in a tweet was language that was really specific in House Bill 359. And so I consulted with the county attorney to come up with a decision. Should we cancel this event at this time until we knew more information? And that decision was not taken lightly because I want everyone to know, and I've been accused differently on both sides of the issue on this, that we made the decision because the person was transgender, and that was by no means anywhere that way at all. When I did the proclamation in the rotunda on Pride Week, I very much in support of the LGBTQ plus 2S community and the celebration of Pride Week. In the 3 years that I've been able to be chief executive during June, every year we've made that proclamation. Every year we've put the pride flag up, and every year we support it. And I'm very proud of our community that we have an anti-discrimination ordinance on the books that came about in 2013, and we are way ahead of the curve, not only in Montana but in the nation. So that decision was not taken lightly, and I know there was a lot of emotion on that side. I can tell you this. I've been called, because we did the Pride Week proclamation, I've been called a left-wing liberal, and then the next email that I got, I was a right-wing fascist. And neither of those are true. I can tell you that. But I am very supportive of Pride Month and what we do here locally. So it's been a tough week. Lots of emotional calls, talking with the press, talking with people in the community. But I want to share with you the letter that I sent to Ms. Jewart. Right after that, I did try to reach out to her, but I'll share with you what I wrote to her. I said, put, Ms. Jewart, please be advised that the decision to cancel your appearance at the Butte-Silver Bow Library on June 2nd was based on a Twitter post stating, and I will definitely have a book, and sexuality will be discussed, and minors may be present. I do, as an LGBTQ two-spirit history lecture at the library June 2nd. I'm really entertaining at this one too, but this literally might be illegal in Montana as a flamboyantly dressed trans woman. Analyzing the language of the provisions of House Bill 359, Butte-Silver Bow made the decision out of an abundance of caution to cancel your appearance at this time. However, Butte-Silver Bow is open to discuss with you in rescheduling of this event with your assurance of the appropriate parameters in place that the provisions of House Bill 359, while it remains the law, will not be violated. I would like to meet with you and figure out a solution that will allow you to present to our public. I tried to reach out to you yesterday to offer a solution and make sure that the presentation did not violate the language in state law regarding public libraries and schools. At the time I called, I was transferred to you, and after a few words was immediately disconnected. I tried to follow back up with calls from my office phone and from my cell phone. I understand your frustration. You may not have wanted to speak yesterday. I'd be happy to schedule a time to meet with you at your convenience to talk through the concerns that Butte-Silver Bow has and come up with a solution that would allow you to present to the community. I want to allow you the respect you deserve and the ability to share your thoughts and issues with me at this time. and then I sent it out respectfully. And I sent that out on Friday, and the only reason it went out on Friday rather than Thursday after we had to cancel the event was I didn't have a contact information. I had received a phone number from Donovan Hawk, which that's when I was trying to reach out via phone. We never received an email address until Friday, in which the county attorney sent that letter to her attorney, and I sent that copy of the letter directly to Ms. Jort. And so I want people to understand my position, where we're at here locally. I support our non-discrimination ordinance, and I think that we can work together to make sure that we allow people to have their First Amendment rights while not having to be put in a position that we may have to allow somebody to challenge the new state law. And as I said, this is not a personal opinion, and if it was, I probably wouldn't have had to look at trying to cancel that event. But it was a tough decision, and these weeks are not easy when these issues come up. So just to kind of let you know on that, I'll put some brighter news out there after this, but I wanted to speak to that directly. Yesterday, the chief of the Forest Service came and visited Butte and the Basin Creek watershed and was in town with the governor, and we toured Basin Creek and the upper Basin Creek Reservoir, and they were astounded, both of them, at the amount of deadfall and fire danger that we have around the Basin Creek Reservoir. It's unprecedented to be able to get the chief of the Forest Service into a local community to discuss this. I mean, it was outstanding to be able to do that. Again, I've gone over this many times, but Jim Keenan at the water treatment plant, he's just such a fantastic spokesman for our community, and I think that we have risen even above where we were at with the support of Senator Tester and his office, where we got the attention, but they realize the necessity to really work on that. So that was outstanding. And then 2 days ago, the governor was back in town with the DeVille announcement as well. So we're getting some state attention, some of it not so good, some of it really good. So I just kind of wanted to touch base on that and let people know some of the great things and some of the challenging things that we have going on here. So with that, I'm going to close on the Chief Executive's report and move on to any public comment on any item on tonight's agenda. If you would like to speak on any item on tonight's agenda, please step forward, state your name, your address, and the item that you would like to speak on today. There you go.
Thank you. Cassie Wick, 820 West Mercury, and co-owner of 5518 Designs and Dig City Supply in Uptown Butte. In 2021, I wanted to put a parklet on Park Street, an MDT urban route. Due to this enthusiastic request, meetings started to form between staff at Butte-Silver, MDT, and us who wrote the SARTA grant for a parklet, with the end goal being more people on our streets and more businesses wanting to invest in Uptown Butte. The Parklet Pedlet Ordinance was drafted as a result of these conversations, and the parklet was installed last summer, and you may have seen it at the Miners Hotel. It was very expensive to do that. After taking a closer look at what our ordinance says, it appears that the ordinance only defines parklets and pedlets, not sidewalk cafes for Uptown Butte. And I believe the reason for this is that we didn't have the terminology when this ordinance was created. There are distinctive differences between parklets, pedlets, and sidewalk cafes. The first page of that document I gave you showcases the difference, and I'm going to talk about it right now. So parklets and pedlets utilize the parking lane for their structure, while sidewalk cafes are simply the placement of seating on the sidewalk in front of a business. Parklets are usually installed by transforming a section of the street or parking lane into a mini park or seating area. They often feature elements such as benches, tables, planters, and other amenities that create a welcoming and inviting space for pedestrians. A pedlet is when the pedestrian walkway, normally on the sidewalk, is rerouted from the sidewalk to an on-street parking space to allow for outdoor dining or shopping to fill the entire sidewalk area in front of the business. The pedlet uses the parking spaces to accommodate the pedestrian traffic. A sidewalk cafe simply extends a business's seating and service onto the sidewalk or public space adjacent to that business. It allows patrons to enjoy their meals, drinks, or refreshments in an outdoor setting while being situated alongside the sidewalk or in the pedestrian area. The seating area located outside of Headframe Spirits is a sidewalk cafe. It is not a pedlet. Sidewalk cafes typically consist of tables, chairs, umbrellas, or canopies that are set up on the sidewalk, creating a designated outdoor dining space. Sidewalk cafes offer several benefits. Firstly, they provide an opportunity for customers to enjoy the fresh air, people watching, and as we all know, we have a very short summer and we want to sit outside, so you enjoy the neighborhood. Secondly, they contribute to the vitality and attractiveness of urban areas by activating the sidewalks and creating vibrant street life. Sidewalk cafes enhance the overall pedestrian experience, making the area more welcoming and inviting. Moreover, sidewalk cafes can be economically beneficial for both the businesses and the community. They can increase a restaurant's seating capacity, allowing for more customers and potentially higher revenue. They also contribute to the local economy by attracting foot traffic and providing a unique experience that draws residents and tourists alike. It is important to note that the operation of a sidewalk cafe is typically regulated by the local government to ensure safety, accessibility, and compliance with specific guidelines. These regulations may include rules regarding sidewalk width, pedestrian passage, hours of operation, and noise levels to maintain a balance between the needs of the business and the public. I did, as you can see in this document, research by contacting every Montana city, except I forgot Helena somehow, to see their approach to sidewalk cafes. The fee structure in the other major cities in Montana ranges between $0 and $50 to have sidewalk seating. As we envision the future for this beloved city, we must recognize the immense value that these outdoor dining spaces bring to our community. They not only enhance the vibrancy and attractiveness of our city streets, but they also foster economic growth, create a sense of community, and contribute to our thriving local culture. The presence of sidewalk cafes enhances the desirability of Uptown Butte as a destination. It entices visitors from afar and contributes to the tourism industry that supports many local jobs. While the benefit of sidewalk cafes are abundant, I do understand that concerns may arise regarding issues such as pedestrian safety, accessibility, and the use of public space. However, it is crucial to approach these concerns with a balanced perspective and an emphasis on finding practical solutions. Street furniture, like we're discussing here today, can be found all over the world. By implementing thoughtful regulations and guidelines, we can ensure the smooth coexistence of pedestrians, outdoor diners, and the businesses. By embracing and supporting these outdoor spaces, we send a clear message that Uptown Butte is a vibrant, welcoming, and a forward-thinking destination which directly aligns with the Uptown Master Plan. I implore you to recognize the importance of sidewalk cafes and champion their presence in our city with reasonable implementation and fee structures similar to what other Montana cities are doing. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And if you have any questions about my document, I'm also going to email it to you because I have the links to the other cities. And I did in the back attach Great Falls Sidewalk Cafe and Kalispell. I thought that was a really good guide for what other cities are doing because it is about making sure that there's consistency. And so there are examples to follow. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Wick. Is there any other, anyone to speak on any item on the agenda tonight? Please come forward, state your name, address, and the item you'll be speaking to us about.
Okay, I think this is on. Excuse me. I'm Carrie Fisher, 1001 West Broadway in Butte, America. So thank you, Commissioners and Chief Executive Gallagher. I too am here to talk about Ordinance 1217 or Chapter 1217 in Parklet and Pedlets. So my role in this is on May 13th, I received a letter outlining the ordinance and the penalty for failure to comply with the ordinance and pay the $700 fee. And what was specifically referenced was the 4 tables and chairs that I put out in front of Taco del Sol every year. And I've done this for 8 years. So to learn that it was all of a sudden going to cost me $700, and if I put a table and chair out, was going to cost me a penalty of $1,400, I began communicating with all the other uptown businesses, and I called 6 of them, and asking them if they received the same letter as I did. And none of the 6 received a letter. I was the only person who did. So that began my public outcry where, you know, I requested to be added to the agenda, so thank you. Additionally, I put together a petition that I had out at Pita Pit and Taco del Sol, and just asked people if they thought $700 was out of line for a fee for a few tables and chairs. Then I have 498 signatures, so community agrees we need to be together and in line with the rest of the state. As a business owner and a property owner, I've been personally investing in Uptown Butte for over a decade now, and I'm so excited and proud of where we've come to this part. You know, we have the consent decree, we have the Uptown Master Plan, we have the Parks and Recs Master Plan. Great things are coming, and I truly do believe that somehow tables and chairs on sidewalks just got put into the parklet and pedlet ordinance. And as Cassie put together so graciously, it's not the same thing. Sidewalk cafes, tables and chairs, however you refer to them, simply are not parklets and pedlets, and I think therein lies the error. So, a couple of things I just wanted to say in regards to sidewalks and business owners. We all take very seriously the responsibilities and to keep our sidewalks safe and accessible and make sure that everyone is ADA compliant, and I'm 100% in support of that. Ordinance 1217, like I said, is a parklet pedlet ordinance, and I do believe that we need to remove sidewalk cafe or tables and chairs from that ordinance. From there, whatever guidelines need to be created so that business owners are responsible and are following ADA guidelines, I think is perfectly acceptable. And I think that we need to just do our research and make sure that we are in line with what other cities in Montana are doing. Like Cassie said, the fee is anywhere from 0 to 50, and that certainly seems reasonable. Secondly, my final request would be when we set a guideline or an ordinance that affects all Butte businesses, then all Butte businesses should be notified. Not 1, not 2, it needs to be everyone. So we need to make sure that people aren't being selective in that. I do have a letter from Courtney McKee and a letter from Mike Paphausen. Is that something you want me to read or give to you, or?
If you could just give it to us and we can
Yeah.
distribute it, that would be fine.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Yep. Do we have any other public comment?
I'm John Wick. I live at 820 West Mercury. I'm also the co-owner of 5518 Design on Main Street and Dig City Supply around the corner at 43 West Park. Basically, without being redundant, I just want to thank Carrie and Cassie for bringing this to light, and thank you guys all for listening to us. You don't need to say that. So basically, my perspective right now is that $700 is an unreasonable ask for some tables and chairs to be put out on a sidewalk. Over the last couple weeks, I've been chatting with several of the other uptown business owners. And generally speaking, we're all kind of feeling the pinch right now. Business is slow, at least in my corner of the economy. And I know that I'm not the only one that feels that. every single day, we're all just doing our best to run a successful business and contribute to the vibrancy of Uptown. And when people and visitors see chairs and tables on the sidewalk and people walking around, hanging out, using those tables and chairs, it creates instant visibility that all of our businesses are open and that our Uptown business district is alive. I personally, without repeating everything that's already been said, I personally would like to see a $0 fee on both the local and the state level. And even more so, anything more than just a nominal fee assessed feels like we're being punished for the work that we do, and not feeling supported by our local government. So thank you for your time in reconsidering this. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lick. Is there any other public comment on any item on the agenda tonight?
Hey there, everyone. John McKee, Head Frame Spirits, 21 South Montana, Butte, America. I'm here to speak on the Pedlet Parklet issue as well, and I just want to give you a little feedback as one of the only 2 people in 3 years that have been able to put up an outdoor seating area, and the sort of the difficulties therein. So I own an engineering firm, I own a fabrication firm, and so if we even back out the code review and back out the fabrication of what we built down there, we're still a couple $1,000s in just to be able to open this at all. And we had to go to architects. The architects we had to submit stamped code review to be able to do this. The first year, in 2020, when we tried to do it, it took so long on the back and forth with the city that by the time we got approval in late August, we just said, nah, we'll come back next year. Every year we have come back. We're really grateful for the opportunity. I think it means a lot. Courtney's letter does a really great job of describing some of the challenges we've had, and I think you should really take a chance to read that. But we have a couple little notes for you, maybe. I think there are a couple of things that could make it easier to do. For instance, every year that we come, we have to come back to resubmit. We have to go get the same letters of support from our neighbors that we got the year before. I mean, there's some sort of interesting challenges that don't seem really like or reasonable to do. We definitely maintain that this should be the same across the board. It should be enforced the same across the board. We're asking if you do waive the $700 fee. Well, golly, I'd like this year's $700 fee back, if that'd be okay. And I think that a couple other things, if it could be really easy. If the permit is the same as last year and the checkbox is the permit exactly the same as last year, yes or no? Check that and it gets approved. That could make this a lot easier because we're going through the same level of work every year to redo this. And we really mean, we want people, like John was saying, we want people to see that Butte, America's Uptown is a vibrant outdoor place to walk around and know the businesses are open and we're doing our best. The only note we have for you is right now it says you can only do it from May to October. Well, we'd be happy to throw up a tiki torch or 2, one of those propane tiki torches, and let it run longer. Why don't you just make the permit effective Jan 1? People can put out their chairs whenever they want. A VA who wants to sit out in the snow, let them sit out in the snow. At least people are driving uptown and seeing that, and that's really important. So I think we've been happy to be the guinea pigs. We usually are, and we're very happy to do that. I think if you'd like some more notes, certainly from any other perspective, please feel free to contact us and read Courtney's letter. It's paragraphs long of detail of what we've gone through, and it's rather challenging. So I really hope that you guys can make it easier on everyone else in not only the $700 fee, but in the other processes, such that more people could pull this off and get it done. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. McKee. Is there any other public comment on an item on the agenda tonight? Please come forward, state your name and the item you will be speaking on.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Schulte, and my address is 13 Earth Lane. I am standing in support with these guys that have already spoke tonight, and for the sole purpose of some of these guys in this room are some of the most generous people in the entire Uptown of Butte and in Butte. And so giving a little bit back to them, this is a great opportunity for us to give back to them. I run the Hearts and Handbags fundraiser, and these are the people that reach out to me to donate. and it means so much to have their support in every step of the way. So I'm here tonight to kind of repay the favor and show my support for not only them, but for the people that patron their business and support them as well. I'm going to kind of skip through this because a lot of it's been covered, but $700 is just not acceptable. I mean, think about how many drinks, how many pitas, how many tacos, how many everything that they have to sell to cover $700. And then you add in the inflation that we've experienced in the last year, the increase in labor costs, the increase in input costs and everything else like that. Their margins are getting skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. So to have this ordinance that really does nothing to bring in extra business, it's just a courtesy that they would like to offer to the people of Butte. I think it's imperative that we do something to help them, just as they've done so much to help me and the Safe Space fundraiser that does so much for Butte. So I don't have a business in Uptown Butte, and if I'm going to be completely honest with you, I prefer to sit inside in the AC, but there's plenty of people that do like that. In fact, 498 people that signed a petition. I know myself, when I saw the post, I went out of my way to drive up there to sign the petition, just as I went out of my way to stand here before you tonight and stand up for something that is wrong and that needs to be changed in support of the people that work very, very hard to make Butte a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schulte. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on any item on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to Section 1, bid openings, public hearings, and our presentations. We have one bid opening, communication number 2023-269. County Attorney Joyce, do we have proof of publication?
Mr. Chief Executive, there is proof of publication. It does appear to be in order.
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce. I'll read the caption here before we move on. Mark Neary, Public Works Director, requesting Council of Commissioners concurrence to schedule a bid opening for June 7, 2023 for a mill fill project for the Roads Division. Director Neary.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher and Commissioners. For the record, I'm Mark Neary, Public Works Director. Looks like we have two bids. The first one's from Hollow Contracting in Butte.
And Mr. Chief Executive, there is a bid bond in the amount of 10% from a licensed surety company that appears to be in order.
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce.
Chief Executive Gallagher and Commissioners, the total is $865,594.70. $865,594.70.
$865,594.70.
Yep.
Thank you.
The second bid is from Hoffman's R&M Services in Butte.
And Mr. Chief Executive, there is a bid bond in the amount of 10% from a licensed surety company that appears to be in order.
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce.
Chief Executive Gallagher, the total on this is $914,434.20. $914,434.20.
$914,434.20.
Yep.
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce. Director Neary, Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I move to refer these back to the Public Works Department for a recommendation back to this body.
We have a motion and a second to refer back to. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
12 yeas, 0 nay.
12 yeas, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to Section 2, Consent Agenda A1 through 4 and B1 through 30. Do we have any friendly amendments and/or segregations? Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I have a couple or a few friendly amendments and some segregations. Friendly amendments to communication number 2023-297, communication 2023-298, communication 2023-299. When these communications were submitted, the scope of works were not included within the communication, and they have now been added to the links for everyone's review. The communications that I'd like to segregate are 7, communication number 2023-287, 10, communication number 2023-290, 11, communication number 2023-291, 13, communication number 2023-293.
Do we have any other friendly amendments or segregations? Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I'd like to segregate communication number 2023-308, and also communication number 2023-309.
So 28 and 29, am I
Right.
correct? Okay. Commissioner Reardon. Okay.
I'm sorry, can you repeat those communications?
That would be communication, or items number 28 and 29, communication number 2023-308, and 29, communication number 2023-309. Do we have any other friendly amendments and/or segregations?
That's number 10. Yeah, that's 7.
Seeing none. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to approve Section 2 of the consent agenda A 1 through 4 and B 1 through 30, with the exceptions of 7, communication number 2023-287, 10, communication number 2023-290, 11, communication number 2023-291, 13, communication number 2023-293, 28, communication number 2023-3808, 29, communication number 2023-309.
We, and I was jumping ahead of you. We have a motion and a second. Is there anything on the question? And would commissioners please vote? Tonight's consent agenda. Yes. I think we need some time to circle our wagons. – 10, 11, and 13. Okay. And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
12 yeas, 0 nay.
12 yeas, 0 nay. 12 yeas, 0 nay. Motion passes. Moving to item number 7, communication number 2023-287, Elizabeth Osborne, Butte-Silver Bowl Planner, requesting council commissioners approve the preliminary plat of Blacktail Creek major subdivision and variance requests. This subdivision would create 11 lots for residential development and associated infrastructure. The variance request is to install paved pedestrian trail rather than provide dedicated parkland or cash in lieu of. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. So my initial recommendation was to hold this in abeyance. The reason for that is I wanted the planning department, whether Director Pipinich or Senior Planner Osborne, to come up and explain kind of the next process in where we're at, because we did get a lot of public comment on this. We're still receiving letters, and I know Commissioner Reardon has some more information, so I just wanted to give the planning department, to give a little explanation on where we're at with this process and the next steps.
Thank you, Commissioner Frederickson. Director Pipinich.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Frederickson. For the record, my name is Dylan Pipinich. I'm the Planning Director. Yeah, so to give a little background, just in, a refresher in subdivision in general, what the communication is asking for is approval of the preliminary plat. If you remember, the subdivision has two phases, is preliminary plat and final plat. The preliminary plat, the intent of that is to review up front the impacts of the subdivision and create either approve or deny and create a list of conditions. And then at final plat time, you review those conditions, and once those conditions are met, then you ask for approval of the final plat. Where we're at in this stage is we've had a public hearing, because it's a major subdivision. We had a public hearing at the planning board. We also had a public hearing in front of this body. You heard lots of testimony of what's going on, so the communication in front is to approve the preliminary plat, not the final plat, the preliminary plat of this major subdivision, with the conditions that were outlined in the staff report that you received at the time of the public hearing. If you would note, one of those conditions is DEQ approval of the wells and septic systems, and that is very common practice to condition preliminary plats on that DEQ approval. As a matter of fact, state law just requires DEQ approval prior to final plat, which is why communities put that on here. So as a condition of approval of the preliminary plat. So the things that the local governing body looks at are, impacts to agriculture, all those impacts that are in the staff report. And what is typically done is that the well and septic review is deferred to the DEQ, which is why the condition of approval for those reviews is a condition of approval of the preliminary plat. So basically what the governing body would be saying if you were to approve this preliminary plat tonight is you're telling the subdivider that they have permission to move forward and figure out all the remaining details that are those conditions of approval in that staff report for the preliminary plat, one including the well and septic. So I hope that clears up some confusion in the process. I'd be happy to answer any more questions.
Thank you, Director Pipinich. Any questions?
I have a follow-up.
Okay, follow-up, Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. So just so I hate to repeat what you're saying, but I'm going to anyway. Next stage, we approve the preliminary plat. We cannot go forward. DEQ cannot test the wells. They cannot test the septic and everything until we approve this. Once DEQ approves or denies, I mean, if they deny it, then it's done, right? Or is there another vote for the final? Do we vote on the final plat?
Commissioner Frederickson, Director Pipinich.
Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Frederickson, so you're close but not quite right.
Okay.
So the DEQ is already in the midst of reviewing their application. Okay. They're doing that simultaneously. That is a very vigorous process. A lot of engineering's involved, a lot of testing can be involved, especially in an area like this. One thing I do want to mention, is governing bodies are held to timeframes for reviewing subdivisions. In a major subdivision, it's 60 days from the time that you declare that the application is sufficient for review. And with the public hearings and stuff, 60 days goes pretty fast, which is why communities do that condition of approval for the DEQ, because sometimes the DEQ review can take a lot longer than that, right? You look at everything else that you can. Right now, the DEQ is reviewing this. All of the comments that we received in writing and orally from the planning board meeting and the council meeting, we forwarded to the DEQ reviewer. I know that they are working with the developer on how to solve some of the issues that are out there. They haven't given one way or another yet. And then to answer the second part of your question with next steps is the final plat will come before this governing body. You'll receive a staff report. We will evaluate where they are when they apply for final plat in completing those conditions and give the proper documentation, so we would attach the DEQ approval. I think that there's, a dozen or so conditions. There's 10 conditions. We would list all of those out. So it's not just DEQ, it's all 10 conditions. It's stormwater and everything like that we do on everything else. So you would receive a staff report with evaluation of if they've completed those and a recommendation if they're ready for final plat or not. So the time frame in state law, they have 3 years, or they have to ask for an extension. I think you probably all have seen some of the extensions that we've been granting on some of these. So basically that's what the preliminary plat is. It's okay, go figure out how to solve the issues that are in these conditions. You have 3 years to do it and come back to the body and we'll make sure that you've done it. So
Okay.
that's kind of,
Thank you.
yep.
Thank you, Director Pipinich. I believe Commissioner Fortune has a question.
Director Pipinich pretty much already answered it. My question was if the DEQ had given any updates on where they were at with their review. But
Okay.
sounds like we don't know.
Commissioner Fortune, Director Pipinich.
Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Fortune, we haven't received any, but the subdivider is here tonight, so he may have more knowledge on that than I do. I think that they're working back and forth through some issues, but we haven't received, yes or no either way.
Thank you, Director Pipinich. Did you want? Okay, Commissioner Shea. Sorry. Oh, follow up, Commissioner Fortune. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner Fortune.
I was just going to make a comment. It's my district, and pretty much every comment I've got has been against it. I think the neighbors are worried about their wells and their septic systems, and from everything that has been presented to us, nothing really sounds positive about the subdivision. So with that said, I'd like to make a motion to deny it.
We have a motion to deny communication number 2023-283. Is there anything on the question? Commissioner Shea and then Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Thank you, Mr. Pipinich. My question is, and I might just be too dumb to figure this out, which is probably true, but I appreciate your help and your expertise, but why was the application for the preliminary plat submitted before the developer knew what was going on with the DEQ?
Commissioner Shea, Director Pipinich.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Shea. That's common practice. So this isn't the cart before the horse kind of thing. Those DEQ reviews can take a long time. Like I said, we have 60 days to review that. So in the preliminary plat is just that preliminary go-ahead, and you can line out all the conditions that, if it doesn't meet all of those impacts that are listed in the staff report or, in the subdivision regulations, that you can condition approval on the final plat. The DEQ approval is one that's on almost every subdivision, and it's because of that lengthy thing. And for 2, it's because, the DEQ employs a hydrologist that reviews these. We don't expect the local governing body to have that knowledge of hydrology and groundwater and septic systems and that. So that's why we don't, review that at the local level and refer to the DEQ, and that's why everybody does that. So one thing that I would also like to mention, I believe it is, and I would ask the county attorney, I think I have the subdivision regulations back, but if you do choose to deny, I believe that you have to provide the reasons in writing to the subdivider.
Thank you, Director Pipinich. I'll follow up Commissioner Shea and then Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you again, Mr. Chief Executive. Is one of the conditions from the DEQ what the possible negative effects on neighboring property owners is?
Commissioner Shea, Director Pipinich.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Shea. Depending what you mean by negative effects, so there are negative or impacts that we review as a local governing body, of traffic, things like that, those things that were outlined in the staff report, and size of roads and impact on local services like police and fire and things like that. Those are things that we review through the subdivision process as a local governing body. As far as the wells and the septic systems go, the wells, they review for quantity and I keep forgetting the terminology, but it's basically length of use, durability, like is it going to draw it down? So it's like they review for how much water comes out and how stable that water aquifer is. Those are the 2 things they review from there. From the septic system standpoint, it's, nitrates and things that go into the soil. They review to make sure that those don't negatively impact the surrounding properties.
Thank you, Director Pipinich. Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I have a couple questions for you, Dylan. Obviously, this has been a very contentious piece of property starting way back in 1998 when it was first proposed to Butte-Silver Bow as a development situation, and then again in April 27th of 2000, and basically was addressed by numerous, how should I say, company or departments, both local, federal, or not federal, but DEQ in Montana. And when you really look at it and all that stuff, from that time period, there's a lapse in time period because, and you can correct me if I'm incorrect, is the fact that this parcel of property basically wasn't even considered to be available to be developed as a subdivision during that period of time due to the previous situations that were addressed by both the DEQ and the planning board at that time. Are you aware of those situations and applications?
Commissioner Reardon, Director Pipinich.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Commissioner, yes, I am. So I have the luxury of about 15 file cabinets in my office with every subdivision from Butte-Silver Bow. The reason for that is was mainly the nitrates in the area, and technology has advanced significantly more to where now a subdivider is thinking that it might be feasible. So the septic system technology has changed over those 23 years, 25 years, to where they can actually release less nitrates than what's existing in the soil. So that is why, you know, at this point that the subdivider has thought that this is now feasible. It's because of a change in technology. Things have changed since then.
Thank you, Director Pipinich. Commissioner Reardon, follow-up.
Thanks. We dug into these, actually I've been quite involved, Justin and I, in this and all that, and the gentleman gave the presentations on these septic systems saying that the outlet would go to, or at the most 7.5, and probably would be continuous if they had constant water. And right now we're struggling. The people that have been in this original subdivision are running out of water. And some of their wells have been tested. I have an example here of one of the persons, and basically just for water quality, 9.6 in 2006, and then again in 2018, they're way above potable at 15.7. So these nitrates still go into the ground, so we have a so-called newer septic system, but basically these nitrates and water run downhill. So do we add or subtract the nitrates in the ground that we're trying to develop? And if we start out adding them with the pollution and the concerns of the neighbors, I would say that we're way over the nitrates unless we have valid testing for these people and also for the people that are going to buy these properties being, I would say, I'm not going to use the word stunned, but not knowing what's going on. And I think that's where basically everybody is struggling with this situation, is that number one, the testing. And there's a document out there that said that these wells should be tested and monitored by DEQ and by the Montana Board of Geology and also the Health Department of Butte-Silver Bow. Well, when these wells are tested, basically there's a sticker on them, and the most current one I could find that to comply to the residents out there in the upper division is dated 2001. And these people are running out of water. And I don't see how we can possibly go ahead with this, because I know what's going to happen is the DEQ is going to come back and go, just like they did before, no matter what you got going, number one, you got to have water. You got to have clean water. And at the presentation, basically, we had a gentleman, the developers, say about water alarms, and we're doing this and we're not doing that and all that stuff. I just really struggle with the outcome on this, and I know it isn't the outcome. We try to give everybody a chance, but number one, we have to give the people that are living there a chance to save the water that they got, and they have an investment of $300,000 to $400,000 per house. One gentleman has drilled 4 wells to keep his going. So I mean, I'm a sensible guy, but I just can't justify putting this off 3 years, holding the residents out there at hostage to make this deal work, when basically I don't think there's anything right now that we can present. I know there hasn't been a lot of testing done. This is true. But the thing about it is that before and all that, we're talking nitrates, and I think the proof is in the pudding right there. They're still got to excrete nitrates out of any septic system that they have. And we basically got to add the dirty water that's already into the ground, which I believe will possibly put them over in a lot of scenarios. And then I have one more. A gentleman received an email from Sean Rowland, DEQ Engineer, Bureau of Water Quality Division, stating that Black Creek subdivision application was submitted to our office on 4/24/23. The element review determines whether a complete application was submitted. I get we're in the beginning, but the DEQ denied that application. So I think in denying this procedure and all that, protecting the people that are out there, and I understand an investment and all that, but we have to protect the taxpayers that have made an investment in the house rather than see them drain more water out of their aquifer. So that's just my comment, and I hope that, you know, I don't know what's going to go on, but I'm with some people that really don't like the situation that we're working with. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reardon. Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Dylan, question, if this was said, I apologize. In the DEQ review, does that do anything for the water portion of this? The DEQ magically tell us that there's enough water if you had 11 more houses out there? Thank you.
Commissioner O'Neill, Director Pipinich.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner O'Neill. Yeah, the DEQ is requiring the landowner to do some pump testing and do some testing. They approve both the water and the septic systems to clear up some kind of confusion of who is responsible for what part of the review of this. By conditioning DEQ approval, the question of if there's enough water or if the septic systems are adequate isn't in front of the governing body to that extent. That question lies with DEQ. So there's a misunderstanding, I think, about whose responsibility that portion of this subdivision application is. You know, by the local governing body conditioning that DEQ approval, that's putting the review for that application that is in review. It has not been denied. They supplied more information and it is currently in review in hydrologists with the Department of Environmental Quality, whose job it is to determine if this subdivision will negatively affect the surrounding landowners from a water quality standpoint, both well volume and septic system drain field addition of nitrates to the area. To hopefully ease some high level science behind that septic system, you know, there's approximately 50 lots in the Warren Heights subdivision right now. I think there's 2 of them that are on these septic systems now because they've either upgraded or been built recently. But the reason for the increase of nitrates in this area is from the 40+ septic systems that is now contributing nitrates to the area. So what DEQ looking at isn't wholly, are we adding, it's like pouring clean water into the Berkeley pit, is basically what the difference between the septic systems are here. They're adding the septic systems currently, there's high nitrates. We know there's high nitrates. We don't dispute those testing levels. Those wells have high nitrates. Some of them are above potable water standards. What the DEQ is looking at is what the addition with these 11 septic systems is going to add to the aquifer. And when you pour less dirty water into more dirty water, you don't make it more dirty. You'd actually probably dilute it. But that isn't the question that's in front of the governing body. By conditioning the DEQ approval, it's the agency that's responsible for ensuring that subdivisions have adequate water and septic systems is reviewing that fact that they have adequate water and septic systems. We're not asking anybody to be hydrologists. We're just asking that portion of this is let the expert make the decision in that regard. The other conditions and all the other impacts and everything like that are very, that's the question that's in front of the local governing body right now.
Thank you, Director Pipinich. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I just want to maybe point out that before we kind of jump the gun and vote on whether to deny this or not, we do have a housing study out there right now, and by reacting in a way if we approve this preliminary thing, that gives DEQ the chance to come back to us and say, yes, let's do this subdivision. No, we can't do this subdivision. So if we deny this right now, it doesn't make sense in my mind that, again, we're being counterproductive when we have other things going on to address housing issues. Here we have a subdivision before us that could potentially be built, but here we are going to say, no, let's deny it. It just doesn't make sense in my mind. So with that, I would like to make a substitute motion to approve concur and place on file and approve the preliminary plat of the Blacktail Creek subdivision.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Is there anything on the question? I'll go with Commissioner Fisher and then Commissioner Shea. Okay.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. We have public hearings, and anyone that didn't hear the public hearing on this a few weeks ago, those people denied it. They don't want it. We don't work for developers. We work for people in Butte-Silver County, and they don't want it. They're worried about their livelihood. They're worried about their life, their house. They don't want it. So if we're going to do our job as commissioners, let's listen to the people that live out in that area and make a statement that says, hey, them people don't want it, so it's our job to say, hey, they don't want it. We're supposed to work for our people. I can't understand why, when people come up here in numbers like that, that tell us, we don't want that, we're worried about our wells, we're worried about our septic, we're worried about our livelihood, our house, and then up here we're going to say, no, go ahead and build one, make a bunch of money, build a subdivision out there and everything will be good. Well, let me tell you what, Butte-Silver might get a little tax money out of it, but I'm going to tell you, them people that live out there spoke and they should be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Dylan, do you think it's possible, sorry, Mr. Pipinich, do you think it's possible that the DEQ could come back and say, yeah, we're okay with this, but we're only going to allow 2 or 3 parcels?
Commissioner Shea, Director Pipinich.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Commissioner Shea, yes, absolutely. There could be, the DEQ could come back and change or rearrange those lots and reduce the number of lots or whatever. At that time, it would be what is considered a substantial change in their subdivision regulations, and it would start the public hearing process over.
Thank you, Director Pipinich. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. For a point of clarification, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, I'm glad that we had opponents come up here and speak on behalf of what they want, but we still have a process that DEQ is saying, hey, we can do this and provide you with the exact information that these people are concerned about, their nitrates, their water pressure, all of that. DEQ is going to come back to us if we go ahead with this and say, yes, you can do this, no, you cannot do this. So again, I think it's very counterproductive, again, to the growth of our community to shut it down right now. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thatcher. Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you a question here, Dylan, and I'm kind of flipping the record here. It's basically if you were living in a subdivision and you were running short of water, your nitrate level was up. Basically, this subdivision, as proposed, has been there at least 2 times before and denied due to nitrates, which have increased in the water. I don't care what anybody says. The proof is in the pudding. It's in the well. It's in the ground. And basically, you're drilling another additional well every 3 or 4 years to get water. I would like somewhat of a guarantee in this deal as we move on that basically the people that are in those 40 to 45 houses basically have a guarantee that their water will be monitored, their wells will be checked before, and basically, I'm going to stick out on the limb. I believe that the nitrate level at the bottom of that hill, water runs downhill, is going to be high no matter, you could put in 2 of those septic systems. The nitrates are in the ground, they're in the aquifer, and basically if you can't drink the water, then basically what's the use of buying the home? So would you with the...
Commissioner Reardon, I'm going to call a point of order because it's not about personal opinion from a director about this.
I'm done.
Okay.
I would like to remake a motion. I would like to make the motion to deny this subdivision procedure.
We already had a motion to do that, so we have to do the first motion to, so we have a first motion to, I can't unless somebody calls you up to approve the preliminary plat. Is there anything else on the question? Commissioner Sorich.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. You know, and I get this about leaving the DEQ to do their job and their time. We've gone down this path with the DEQ on several different issues over the years. What if they're wrong? That's a lot of these people they've got their livelihood back into into those houses. They've sunk every penny they have. What if they're wrong? That's my concern.
Commissioner Sorich, I think that you still have the ability, after DEQ even came back, that you could potentially still deny. But I'll go to Commissioner Callahan.
Thank Chief Executive Gallagher. The gentleman out there that would like to get up and speak, I guess he could answer most of our questions or kind of move us forward. Or
please come forward.
Please. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Callahan. Please state your name, address.
Gary Fox. I'm the owner of the property on Continental. Just want to respond to a couple of those. Thanks for all the comments. Totally respect everything. I think everybody is legit. I would just say, as far as process, we had a pre-application meeting with DEQ and the engineer before we submitted for preliminary plat. So months ago, we showed DEQ the same layout. We talked about it with them, and then we developed the preliminary plat and submitted. That review was an initial review. It was, but they have looked at it for a while. DEQ didn't technically deny the application. The element review letter that we received was just that. It just said we're missing some elements, and a couple elements that they've given us are more detail on the groundwater, more info on the nitrate levels, more info, basically everything. They want to know a little bit more about the modern hydrogeology of the area. So we're working with their hydrogeologist who's been there for a long time. He's familiar. He did the Homestake Meadows subdivision. He's very sensitive to the public comments and the situation. The high nitrates, the 2004 and 2008 reports have nitrate levels between 4 milligrams per liter and 10 milligrams per liter in general. In my opinion, the test you mentioned that's greater than 10, I think that's not normal. I mean, I think that's just a very few in that development. So I think between 4 and 10 is typical. That's what the Bureau of Mines and Geology tested in 2004, 2008. That's what we've tested this past year. We're going to do more testing now. The septic net systems, that's a new technology that's been developed. Those do provide a discharge of 7.5 milligrams per liter or less. That's what I think has allowed this lot to be developed. The running out of water argument, it's tough to argue at this point. We're doing more of a study, but I have not seen or heard any data that says the groundwater in that area is going down. The only hard evidence that I have seen is the Montana Bureau of Mines and Geology monitor well in the fractured bedrock aquifer that is stable over the past 20 years. Now that's just one data point, but I have not seen any other data points that say the water's going down. I understand some neighbors have issues with if they use too much water, but as an aquifer, it seems stable. Then maybe the last thing, multiple wells at a house. There are 1 or 2 cases where neighbors have had to drill multiple wells. And if you look at those well logs, the first well log drilled to 250 or so feet, the second well drilled to 300 feet, didn't find water, and the third well drilled to 400 or 500 feet and found water. So I would argue that those couple spots that didn't find water just didn't drill deep enough. Again, that's my perspective. The number of lots, to answer somebody's comment, we looked at this property, 16 acres, it's got a road through it, it's got access. how many lots should we put on it, or what should we try here, and we tried 11 because that's what fit with wells and septics initially. If you think the county would be more receptive to less, I'd really be interested to know. We're working with DEQ. These are 1.5 acre lots. The neighbors are acre lots. We thought, we're giving them more room. There's more area for wells and septic. This is less dense water. They all have water restrictions, a lot of different things. But how many lots should be on this 16 acres? We could leave it as one, and if this development stalls and we have to get rid of this, it could be one lot, undeveloped for a while. I see this as a good use of land, a good opportunity to provide some houses. We want to do something that we can be proud of and that you can be proud of. I'm not trying to come in here and do something that we're not going to be proud of. So we're working with DEQ. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive. I would just like to have him repeat his name and address, please.
Gary Fox, I live at 851 Windrow Drive, Bozeman.
Thank you. So we have a motion and County Attorney Joyce.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I just wanted to clarify Dylan's question earlier that the governing body is required to issue written findings of fact that weigh the criteria in the local government review for a subdivision. If you do deny the subdivision, and there are several factors that the governing body has to look at in developing those findings of fact. If the subdivider wants to appeal that decision to the district court, the governing body's finding of fact will be sustained unless they're arbitrary, capricious, or unlawful. So whether or not the body wants to look at the criteria that they have to base their findings of fact on before making a final decision might be something you want to take into consideration.
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce. I think Commissioner Fortune had a question, and then Commissioner was it? No, you didn't. Okay, Commissioner Thatcher.
Again, just for a point of clarification, this is the preliminary plat. This does not mean that if we pass this, that the subdivision is going to start cooking up tomorrow. So I'm just saying it's the preliminary plat that I am making this motion on. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thatcher. Commissioner Fortune.
I got my questions for Mr. Fox.
Commissioner Fortune, go ahead.
If you're, I guess my question is, what's your role if in 10 years from now, the neighbors' nitrates do continue to go up and their wells continue to run out and the subdivision goes through? I mean, what happens? What's the repercussions, I guess? Are you nowhere to be found, or?
Commissioner Fortune, Mr. Fox.
Technically, I should be on the HOA. Hopefully, I should be the head of the HOA, so that's where you'll find me. If the nitrates continue to go up, I don't know. They shouldn't really go up. We're putting in a technology that should help them go down, and I think with new technology, I think they should go down. I think I can be a good proponent, and we can be a good example for some of the 50 or 50 neighbors who are on old septic systems to help improve their septic systems and thus improve the groundwater in the whole area. Because this area is not going to improve by itself, that's for sure. And until we get water and sewer down there, which it sounds like that's a ways out, that'll improve it. But I guess that's my answer. I don't have a great answer for you. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Okay, Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I just need one more clarification from Mr. Pipinich, because I did talk to a couple of people out there. One in particular was concerned with the number of lots that would be offered out there. Would it be appropriate at this stage to recommend lesser number of plots, I guess, or whatever they're called, or would that be something we could do in the future if the preliminary plat is approved?
Commissioner Shea, Director Pipinich.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Shea. So, like I stated before, after preliminary plat's approved, if there's a change in the number of lots, it's a substantial change, and that goes back through. I think that it's to clarify a little bit with the staff report reviews, what the local governing body is supposed to review from a subdivision standpoint is very specific impacts that are outlined in the Montana Subdivision and Platting Act. And you can't review something that's not one of those reviewable criteria. In any condition that you make on a preliminary plat or on a subdivision has to be tied to one of those criteria that we listed them all in the staff report as for as a condition or as a change requested by the local governing body. So you would have to tie it to there's impacts of local services, impacts of agriculture, impacts of all those things that are listed in the staff report. If you were to request a reduction in the number of lots, it is by law required that you have documented backup that it is in response to one of those impacts, that the local governing body has found an impact that is not mitigated, that won't be mitigated, and that you are requiring this to mitigate that impact. So it is very possible. That's just the procedure of how you would have to do that.
Thank you, Director Pipinich. I think Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you. I guess my question is, okay, it's that brain part. That happens a lot. So I'm really struggling with this, because if we do let it go, and we let it go through, and it's wrong, well then those people, can we? I guess what I'm concerned about is these neighbors. We all know a lot of these neighbors, and they're actually a lot of them are good people. They're concerned about their water. They're concerned about, and that's what I think that they're really are trying to just protect their probably last penny that a lot of them put into there. On the other hand, I understand this guy, this people, we got to do the right thing for them. We got to. It's a real struggle, and I'm just really fighting this to protect the people. That's my concern.
Thank you, Commissioner Sorge. Commissioner Fortune.
Sorry, it's another question for Mr. Fox.
Okay. Commissioner Fortune.
Besides the public hearing, have you done any outreach to the neighbors? I mean, what's your feedback besides just because our feedback has pretty much all been negative?
Commissioner Fortune, Mr. Fox.
I've discussed with a few of the neighbors on site, probably 3 or 4 of them on site before we submitted, and then I mailed letters to each of the adjoining neighbors before we submitted the preliminary plat application. I've talked to a couple on the phone since and multiple times, so I've tried to keep the neighbors updated of this situation. That's would answer that question. I do want to say, I do want to just add, I'm struggling with this a little bit too. There is a chance DEQ could reduce the number of lots. I just want to say that. I just want that to be clear. But we think that there's ways to work with them and make something work too. So.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Follow up, Commissioner Fortune.
You didn't really answer my question. I'm just curious was it positive feedback or negative feedback?
Commissioner Fortune, Mr. Fox.
To me directly, it was positive. Generally, they did let me know of the couple isolated incidents of neighbors drilling wells and not finding water that we discussed, where there was 3 wells on one property. We did talk about the high nitrates. In general, I think it was positive, but I understand there was concerns. They told me, similar concerns. I would say that a lesser volume than you heard at the council meeting for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Commissioner Sorge.
All right, I had a light bulb moment. Okay. Okay, so we have to be able to approve that why we voted it down. That's has to be written down on paper or whatever. and I guess this is a letter to, or a question for the county attorney. So if these, okay, so is it something that we can say to, you know, in the court of law or whatever, that these people, you know, the neighbors, it was a public hearing, and it was obvious in the public hearing that they didn't want it? You know, so is that something that can be, you see what I'm saying?
Commissioner Sorich, County Attorney Joyce, I believe that question was to you.
I'm just trying to throw it out there, because I get that we can be, you know, be held liable, but I think.
Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Sorich, the statute's pretty clear on what you have to base your findings of fact on, and all of the factors that are in the statute, which I think Mr. Pipinich referred to as what was in their staff report, are going to have to be, you know, the basis. Probably public comment is one of the things that you can base it on, but there's a lot of additional factors that you have to be able to say that you considered.
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce. Commissioner Reardon.
One more time.
Sorry, and then I will go to Commissioner O'Neill.
I have a question for Eileen, and basically the question is, earlier in our work up here when we were dealing with the solar-fired powerhouse, and basically that was denied. We were dealing with private property owners that wanted to develop that area out there for solar energy, and this board or group denied the application. So we're basically dealing with the same deal. And basically, correct me if I'm wrong, is the fact that it was defended in district court by Mr. Peterson and the Butte-Silver 1. Now, we're dealing with somewhat of a similar situation, getting off the ground here and all that. We're talking about district court and being liable and all that. Do you believe that this somewhat is comparable to the situation that we dealt with months back?
Commissioner Reardon, I want to correct that. It was not this body that denied the solar farm.
Okay.
Okay. That,
but
okay. Yes. Okay. So I think we went Commissioner O'Neill and then Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Yeah, definitely stamp that in black in the record that the Council of Commissioners did not deny that. It did not get to us. I mean, that's we got. Hopefully the paper hears that one. So this is where we put our big pants on, okay? I'm calling for the vote. With that being said, if we deny every single thing that comes through this body because nobody wants in their backyard, we're going to be a ghost town, okay? So, listen, I'm calling for the vote. Like, if you don't want it, if you don't want to vote for it, don't. I mean, do we want development in Butte or do we not? Like, our track record's not looking very good. I mean, we are growing, we're doing pretty well, but man, like, nobody wants anything in their backyard. I know this has to do with a lot of particular things. There's no disrespect from the landowners. It's not. But if we can't trust the DEQ, for crying out loud, who the hell can we trust? I mean, we can't trust anybody, but I don't know. But I'm calling for the vote.
We have a call for the vote. Okay, so I need to restate. So this is approving. So yeah. So as we go. So this is the substitute motion to approve communication number 2023-287, which is approving preliminary plans. So are we going to hold an abeyance here? Is that the to concur? Okay, concur and place on file. Okay, so the motion is to concur and place on file. Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
Seven yea, 5 nay.
7 yea, 5 nay, motion passes. Okay, moving on to communication, item number 10, communication number 2023-290. Beth Warren, Human Resources Director, requesting Council Commissioners authorization to have Chief Executive Gallagher sign a memorandum of understanding between the City, County of Butte-Silver Bow, Montana, and Southwest Montana State Regional Council of Carpenters. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I received a note from Director Worm that they're still working through this MOU, and so she asked us to note and place this on file, and she will come back to this body with a new communication, hopefully for the next regular meeting. So my motion is to note and place on file communication number 2023-290.
We have a motion and a second to note and place on file communication number 2023-290. Is there anything on the question? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. I did hear from an employee that wasn't happy with this, so I'm happy to go along with Chairman Frederickson's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Anything else on the question? Commissioner Reardon.
One more time. I just have a question for Beth real quick. How many members or how many carpenters do we have? Are we 2?
Okay. Commissioner Reardon and Director Orm.
Thank you, Commissioner Reardon. We have 1 carpenter.
Thank you. Thank you, Beth. Or thank you, Director Worm.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And Commissioner Fisher, I don't think yours is recorded. And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
12 yea, 0 nay.
12 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 11, communication number 2023-291, Kristen Rosa, Economic Development Coordinator, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization of tax abatement MCA 15-24-1402, a 10-year tax abatement for the construction of a new manufacturing facility in the Montana Connections Business Park. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Upon talking to Ms. Rosa, I'm gonna make a motion that we hold this and refer it to a committee for further discussion. And so, yeah, that's my motion. And if Director Rosa has anything, or Administrator Rosa has anything to add, hopefully we can the committee can get put together quick, and we can, we just want to make sure that we're following all the rules and everything. And so hopefully that'll get resolved, or all the questions will get out there, and we can act on this sooner rather than later.
Commissioner Shea.
I'm happy to second a motion, but are we asking for an internal committee to be formed to review, or?
Commissioner Shea, I think we have Ms. Rosa with us tonight. Welcome, Ms. Rosa. Maybe you can answer that.
For the record, Kristen Rosa, Economic Development Coordinator. So in the past, the Hard Rock tax, or the Hard Rock Funds Committee reviewed all of these. And upon further thought, I think we should make sure that we just have included everybody in that committee that usually, or that in the past had done that. So I think putting that committee back together, or putting representatives of those offices back together just to have a quick discussion about this and bring a recommendation back to the council would be a good best practice to follow.
Thank you, Ms. Rosa. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive. So the TIFID board already looked at this, right?
Good, Commissioner Fisher. Ms. Rosa.
So Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Fisher, no, the TIFID board did not look at this. This is not anything I have actually brought to the TIFID board, because it is a action that the TIFID board really does not have any say in technically, so it has only been brought to this council.
Follow up, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive. So who's going to appoint this committee, and how is it going to play out? I mean, I'm not big on these committees. I like the people that are elected to make decisions rather than people non-elected making decisions about how we spend taxpayer money. So I'm a little concerned about this, because I think Senate had a pretty good sales pitch to us, and I mean, I'm a little concerned about where we're going with this, if there's a but in there. It almost means what, so thank you.
Commissioner Fisher, I believe that I will consult with, because I have not been part of the Hard Rock Committee, and so how that was composed of before, but I think we'll consult on who those members were and we'll come up with that. But with that, I will go to Commissioner Sorge.
Chief Executive. Kristen, this is going to be just like it was in Hard Rock, so the commissioner whose district it is would be the, if I recall right, the commissioners whose ever district it was would be the ones sitting on the committee also. If I recall, that's how it used to be done.
Commissioner Sorge, I can defer that to Ms. Rosa, but yeah, we would probably do that, but go ahead.
So Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Sorge, yes, that is the complete idea, that we would follow what we had done in the past, just so that we are consistent. I agree, Sonata has made a great presentation. I fully support abating their taxes. But I just want to make sure that we have a full discussion and know exactly what we're doing. And if anybody else has any questions, that we can make sure those are answered.
Thank you, Ms. Rosa. Commissioner Mankins.
Thank you, Ms. Rosa and Chief Executive Gallagher. So when you say that we're going to have this, and as we all thought that they did a pretty good presentation with this abatement, does this show them any negative that we're not moving forward at this time, that we need to consult it one more time in order to get another group together that are not elected officials, as what Mr. Fisher said, and to vote forward on this? Or?
Commissioner Mankins, Ms. Rosa.
So Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Mankins, I don't believe so. I have had communications with them, told that there's no opposition to this at this point, and will again inform them tomorrow that we're just going to have an internal committee. If that is the decision that is made by this body, that we would just have a committee to make sure that we have everything in place.
Thank you, Ms. Rosa. Any other questions? So Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you very much, Chief Executive. One question I did have when I remember the presentation, it seemed like time was of the essence, that they wanted to get the ball rolling on this as quickly as possible. Is that correct?
Commissioner Anderson, Ms. Rosa.
So Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Anderson, yes, they are still very interested in keeping this process moving. And by doing this, by this proposal, we are not necessarily, I think we're adding maybe 2 weeks to the process, which we are still, I believe, very much ahead of our competition in working with them on showing them what we're willing to do, and as a community, how much we want them to be here. So I don't think this will negatively impact that decision at all.
Thank you, Ms. Rosa. Anything else on the question? So the motion is to hold an abeyance, correct, and then form a committee that is much like our Hard Rock Committee in the past. Will follow the same format. So with that, could commissioners please vote? Commissioner O'Neill. And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 1 nay. 1 nay.
11 yea, 1 nay, motion passes. Moving on to item 13, communication number 2023-293, JP Gallagher, Chief Executive, requesting Council of Commissioners suspend the fees related to the parklet pedlet permits, BSB Code Chapter 1217. This request is to suspend the fees, but not to suspend the full ordinance. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I think we've already had plenty of discussion on this, and we did suspend the rules, so we will be voting on it a couple more times tonight. So yeah, I'm going to move to note and place communication number 2023-293 on file.
We have a motion and a second to note and place on file. Is there anything on the question? Commissioner O'Neill?
Thank you, Chief Executive. Yeah, so we are going to vote on this again. That's my first question.
Yes,
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Neill. So we voted to put it on the agenda at the end where we're going to have to make a motion to suspend the rules to be able to act on it tonight. And if that passes, then we will move forward to, right? Am I correct? So give me the correct interpretation here. County Attorney Joyce.
Mr. Chief Executive, so
We suspended the rules.
you already suspended the rules to put the emergency ordinance on the agenda?
Yes.
And
the
an emergency ordinance can be passed on first reading. That's the whole purpose of it being an emergency. So you would vote tonight on that emergency ordinance, and if it passes,
Right.
then you would take the action to basically not have a fee associated with the parklet pedlet for this season.
Thank you for that clarification, County Attorney Joyce. Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you very much, Chief Executive. I have a couple questions on this, but bear with me for a moment. So we're going to have a vote on an ordinance to clear the fees for this year and then to look at this. So if we wanted to look at this, it seems to be the most sense to me to go along with the original intent of this communication and refer these ordinances back to judiciary so we could clean any of this up in the ordinance moving forward. Is that correct, or am I missing something here?
Commissioner Anderson, I will defer to the county attorney on this.
Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Anderson, I think if you wanted to amend further sections of the ordinance, you'd have to have another ordinance submitted for amendments that would have to go through the regular ordinance procedure. This is just a effort to address the one provision of the ordinance that imposes a fee, and it's being proposed as an emergency because the parklet pedlet season is upon us. And then the council can take, the ordinance goes away automatically within 90 days and would revert back to that provision being back in the ordinance. And within that 90-day period, the council can, talk about what they want to do, or there can be discussion about what would be a change in the ordinance that would be in effect forever. And at the same time, you could be considering other provisions of the ordinance and make additional amendments through the regular ordinance process.
So we would need a new communication.
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce. So I'll go to Commissioner O'Neill, and I'll come to you, Commissioner Frederickson. Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chief Executive. So my understanding that the only complaint here we're dealing with is the fee, right? The ordinance is okay. Are we right, or here?
Yeah.
Okay, let me talk here. This is where I'm frustrated on this whole deal. Is we haven't like just thrown this out there. Like, this has been discussed. So now this is kind of like the subdivision, right? People come up here and start complaining about it. So then I'll waive the fees, stop it. Come on. Let's make the decision tonight then and get this figured out now. Can we do that? Let's make it $100. Let's make it $50. Like, I'm not trying to get out of line here, but I feel bamboozled, kind of. I feel like, what just happened? Like, I don't know. Like, we don't need to wait this out months. Let's hash it out tonight. I had to be home at 10:30, but let's figure this out if we can, you guys.
Commissioner O'Neill. Okay. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I just want to address a couple of things that Commissioner O'Neill stated. If we were to change the fee, we would have to go through the whole entire ordinance process through judiciary, have other public hearings. All we're doing with this vote is suspending it for 90 days. Just the fee structure. They still have to apply and go through everything. And then after that 90 days, we will start the process of reviewing what that fee is. Because right now our ordinance as Ms. Wick said, doesn't address tables and chairs on the sidewalk. It's either parklet or pedlet. So what we're doing is suspending it for 90 days and then reviewing that after 90 days and coming up with a different fee structure. But if you were to make a motion to change the fee structure right now, you would have to go through the regular process. Am I?
Commissioner Frederickson will defer this to the county attorney.
Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Frederickson, the only way to change what's in the emergency ordinance tonight would be to make amendments on the council floor. So you would have to have that ordinance pulled up and say what particular page and line you wanted to change it from the language from just repealing that section so that there isn't a fee for this 90 days. And then you'd have to rewrite what you want to do, and you'd have to do that on the council floor tonight, which would be cumbersome. Yeah, you wouldn't be home by 10:30 probably, right? Otherwise, what Commissioner Frederickson is indicating is, there is an opportunity if this emergency ordinance is passed, to make further amendments to this particular section and to the overall ordinance.
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce. Commissioner Shorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Basically, all we're doing is putting a Band-Aid on to stop the bleeding for time being. And then we're going to, if we go back after 90 days, then we can actually bring, as they requested, we can actually bring some of those people in to hear some of their opinions too, because that's what they want to hear. That's what they asked us. They asked to be part of it. That's all we're doing.
Yeah, so Commissioner Sorich, we have 90 days to do this. It just suspends it for 90 days for us to do whatever needs to be done. But right now, it's suspending the fees up to that 90 days. Now, there is a process where there can be changes to the ordinance and stuff like that, but to do that tonight, as was said, would take us maybe till tomorrow, but potentially. Commissioner Mankins.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Director Neary I'd like to hear from Director Neary on this, please.
Commissioner Mankins, Director Neary.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Thank you, Commissioner Mankins. On this here, exactly how JP stated is, we're just eliminating the fees for now, but it's only the fee, the $700 fee. Everything else, the ordinance, all the rules, they have to apply for the permit, they have to carry the insurance, which I think is clear. But one thing that I don't want to lose sight on is this might stay the $700, and I think Chief Executive Gallagher has told some of these businesses, because it isn't up to us, it's up to MDT. It's their right-of-way that we maintain. That's why we have this at all. And that's why we're here tonight, but we're not sure what they're doing around the state, and MDT can't tell us what they're doing around the state. That's what we're here to just trying to, we'll waive this fee just for this season.
Thank you, County Attorney, or County Director Neary. I'm just making it a County Attorney tonight. I think we have Commissioner Callahan and then Commissioner Mankins.
Thank you, Chief Executive. I guess this question would be to County Attorney Joyce. The information we heard tonight, they felt that the sidewalk cafes don't fall under this parklet paylet. Is that true? So would they not, would they be exempt from what our ordinance says anyway?
Commissioner Callahan, County Attorney Joyce.
Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Callahan, I think we're getting a little off base from what is the question on the agenda, but if you look at the definition of a parklet pedlet in our current ordinance, it basically defines them as a temporary use of the public right-of-way, and the sidewalk is part of the public right-of-way, but that's obviously something that can be discussed in terms of an overall amendment of the ordinance and whether or not you want to look into more different definitions and defining a sidewalk cafe, or having different provisions for different types of parklet, pedlet, sidewalk cafes, and you have an opportunity to do that in a future time.
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce. Commissioner Mankins, did you have a follow-up question?
I did. I had that same, thank you, Commissioner Callahan, on if that would fit into that. It didn't seem like a real clarification on if it fit into that. Also, just a reiteration, as Mr. Neary said, that they would still be responsible insurance-wise if there was something that happened through this process still, which is a very, just to make sure that everybody's listening, that is a very important aspect of this, that the permit is still making them holding the insurance if something didn't happen to someone with this different walkway, which I still would like to have clarification more on, us making it a parklet, petlet, sidewalk, cafe, it just doesn't seem that, there should be some more clarification from, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mankins. Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. It sounds like all of our discussion is going to happen during this note and place on file motion. I was going to wait and make my comments during the amendment portion, but I'll just go ahead and state that I definitely don't disagree that parklets and pedlets and sidewalk cafes bring a great value uptown. I've used all of them. So, well, the parklets and the sidewalk cafes, I love that. The perception is out there that the council and the local government set these fees and acted kind of maliciously. I tend to stay away from the comment sections on social media, but what was said was pretty accusatory that that everybody was just out to get the small businesses, which is definitely not true. Every single one of us has been to every business that the owner that came up to speak tonight. They're community partners. We are community partners with them, and we've all worked on projects and initiatives together. And that is what it takes to make the world go round. That being said, the ordinance itself with the fee has been in place for 3 years. It was put into place in June 17th of 2020. And so it's not a large surprise that it was out there. There was a lot of discussion at that time. And as far as people not being informed as to what the council is doing, what ordinances we're passing, what actions we're taking, we publish an agenda on our website every Friday. It is out there by 5 o'clock. Everybody in the world that with internet access can see it. If they don't have internet access, they can come here. They can go to Barb's office and see it. They can see it at the library. These agendas are everywhere. If people do not participate in their local government, that is their own fault. And I just want to get that on the record. I want to see more public participation. I love all this discussion. I love it when we have a ton of public comment. I love it when we have people come up and challenge us and we talk about ideas and we find middle ground. So that being said, I think this is the best course of action. We suspend it, we review it, we write our own definitions in there. We investigate to see what is happening in other communities. But at the end of the day, private businesses are being allowed to use public right-of-way to make money. That's not something we can do lightly either. So the middle ground is out there. We just got to get to it.
Thank you, Commissioner Shea. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Just echoing on Commissioner Shea's sentiment about getting my little comment in here before we do this. I guess I'm all for, we can't have an uptown master plan and then go and hinder the very businesses that we hope to benefit. So I get that, and I get where all these business owners are coming from, but I also get where the county side of this is coming from. My one question is, so when we suspend these, if we suspend these fees, are we still on the hook for the $350 per parklet pedlet that goes out that MDT has charged?
Commissioner Thatcher, Director Neary.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Commissioner Thatcher, I'm in talks right now with MDT, and they are unsure too. Their staff has changed over as well there, but we have an agreement with them. So, and just like John McKee from Head Frames, he's already put in for his permit and paid the fee. I'm not exactly sure. The biggest thing is liability in the right-of-way, and right now it's on us. So granted, we have to pay MDT the $350. And, you know, that's all we're worried about is the liability coming back to us. I mean, I'll take couches and recliners up and down Park Street. I really don't care, and Karen Burns and Danette Lisa will tell you I can't wait to drink coffee on the bulb outs once the master plan is implemented. But our whole thing is, and my staff has kind of been attacked on Facebook, and even like tonight, the letters were given out to people who have had the chairs and tables. Not every business owner, but the people who have had the John's Pork Chop, Head Frames, Taco del Sol, and the Party Palace have been the ones that have had chairs and tables out there when we didn't have any teeth in the ordinance. And now that's all we did is what we went through the last couple months is we got some fees. So if they didn't get the permit, we were able to charge them the fees. And that's what brought all this on.
Thank you, Director Neary. Follow-up, Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you. So the letter that was sent out, was that just specifically to say, hey, if you don't get this permit, you're charged the $1,400 or whatever we put into place? That's all that was, correct?
Commissioner Thatcher, Director Neary.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Thatcher, yes.
Thank you, Director Neary. Is there anything on the question? So we're just, we are, what was the motion? Okay.
Last question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner
Mr.
O'Neill.
Chair. I just want to clarify, so MDT doesn't charge us anything right now? There's currently no fee, or we do have a $350 fee?
Commissioner O'Neill, Director Neary.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner O'Neill, we do have an agreement that we have to pay the $350 to MDT. So we added the other $350 so we recoup the $350 that we had to pay MDT. But we do have to pay MDT the $350, and we already have. We only have one agreement right now. But in this, with the talks with MDT, they're not sure that they're in the right now.
Director Neary. So, Commissioner O'Neill, the question is are we going to get charged? We don't know. There is an agreement in the past that that's what they're charging us. The investigative part of where we're at right now, because it came to question a little bit, is this being implemented in all municipalities fairly in the same on all MDT routes? So whether in Bozeman, Missoula, Great Falls, all those, and they haven't been able to answer that question yet. So that's where we're at here. Again, this is to suspend for within that 90 days. If we have information that comes forward that says these fees should be, we can come back within the action we're taking here and say they are appropriate and put those fees back in. So we do have that ability based on the motion, what we're doing with the emergency suspension today. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. All right, so now what is our motion? Okay, the motion is to note and place on file. Do you want to? Okay, Commissioner Callahan.
I just wanted to comment, I've been on judiciary since they first came about this, and every year we bring it up, it's been a tough discussion. And one of the discussions we had this year that we struggled with was the fees. Not every street is MDT. Right. So somewhere in there, we should find a decent balance for everybody. And, it's an excessive fee. We heard tonight it was an excessive fee. When we give permits out for other things, very few of our permits are $350. So to me, and we struggled with that, and I'm glad these folks came up here and spoke up and readdressed it, because without the public comment, it's hard to know how they feel about it or they don't feel about it. But I'll be more than glad to go back to the table and work this out.
Thank you, Commissioner Callahan. Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you very much, Chief Executive. Just a quick question, I believe, for Director Neary. What is the fee and what do we charge for the farmers market on Saturdays?
Commissioner Anderson, Director Neary.
Thank you, Chief Executive Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Anderson, I believe that is an event that goes through Bob Lazary with Parks and Rec. I'm not exactly sure what the fee is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Neri.
Sorry.
Do you know what it is?
I believe it's a special event form, and I'm not sure if we charge for the closures. I should know this because I was a Parks and Rec director in the past, but I think we waived any fees with that based on the event for the community, and that's pretty common what we've done in the past. Okay, Commissioner Fortune.
Me and Commissioner Fisher are doing some math over here, and if the fee is $350 now and we're just recouping our $350, shouldn't the fee just be $350?
Commissioner Reardon, Director Neri.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Fortune, and Fisher. So we have to pay MDT $350 to do nothing. So we're giving out the $350, so we're trying to recoup our Butte-Silver Bow's $350.
Commissioner Fortune, I've got you're supposed to direct that through me to him, but so I think what has been done in the past, and I can just speak to this, and I'll let Commissioner or Director Neri, now you're Commissioner, Director Neri respond, but we're the ones doing the work and doing the enforcement and doing the permitting and doing all those things, and MDT is charging the $350, and that's what we're discussing. I think that we understand that there's a challenge to this and what's perceived in here, and we're going to work through this. And again, this just suspends that for 90 days if we choose to do that. If there's work done and says that we are getting charged the $350 and we need to recoup that. But the hard part, and we've discussed this a little bit, is it's hard to charge somebody just because they're on an MDT route a certain fee and then say, well, now you're on Broadway Street and yet there's no fee for you. Is that fair either? So it's trying to find a balance, and in government, it's hard to be completely fair with everybody. And so I think this allows us some time to work through some of that. And anyhow, do you want to add to that, Director Neri?
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Fortune, it's $350. I get that. So we just give it to them and then they give us the $350. But on head frames, when we tried to fit it on Galena that Mr. McKee was talking was such a pain, I bet you we spent $10,000 in our staff time down there trying to make it work on Galena with a fire hydrant and an alley, so there is a lot of expense to it, but I mean, we're willing to do whatever this body decides, so.
Thank you, Director Neri. Okay, so we have a motion to note and place on file. Is there anything else on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
12 yea, 0 nay.
12 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to item number 28, communication number 2023-308. Mark Neri, Public Works Director, requests Council Commissioners authorization to purchase CCCS property located on the 600 block of East Iron Street for Metro Sewer. The total purchase price of this property is $522,448. This is Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive Gallagher. Mark, I just have a few questions, and basically, I believe that there's some questions with the council here. Is on this property being purchased on East Iron Street for $322,448 from CCS. Is that going to be used for storage, or what is the purpose of that property?
Commissioner Reardon, Director Neri.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Reardon, this is for the Metro heated shower storage facility that was approved in the budget.
Okay.
Instead of building a new building, we want to purchase this building.
Okay. That makes good sense.
Thank you, Director Neri.
Okay.
Any other questions of commissioners? Commissioner Fisher?
Thank you, Chief Executive. I just got a comment, we're spending a lot of money buying property and doing stuff, we got the armory building, for the, whatever they got going there, and we got this, where does this end? We just had county shop for $14 million built. Now we're buying property up like we're land developers. We should be coming in from Bozeman and buying up land or something. It's just kind of a question I got that, the taxpayers always look at this kind of stuff and they ask us, well, geez, they got a nice shop down there. We rented that trailer, forever. We had that trailer we rented for for, I think, 5 or 6 years up there. So I have no problem with it. These are questions we get, and I just like to have a better answer for them. Thank you.
Commissioner Fisher, Director Neri, want to answer that?
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Commissioner Fisher, the Metro crew is still in that trailer down at Metro. We were proposing to build a new building down at the Metro plant. We went out for bids, came in over budget, so then we asked for more money on the budget last year, and we got it. And this building came up for sale, and we went and looked at it, and it's a facility that'll handle everything in Metro. All of our vehicles, everything will go in there. It's something that we needed to do. We needed to spend the money because we're at the Kelly along with Department of Reclamation that it's going to the Armory. So I believe, in my mind, it's a good purchase. Don't want to be a land developer from Bozeman, but I believe it is in our best interest to get it. It's a good facility.
Thank you, Director Neri. Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you. Is this money coming out of the existing budget or the new budget?
Commissioner Reardon, Director Neri.
Chief Executive Gallagher, it's coming out of the budget right now. Okay. It was approved last year.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Commissioner Reardon, oh yeah, we need a motion.
Okay.
Yeah, we need a motion first.
Okay. I would like to recommend that communication number 2023-308 be placed and concurred and be placed on file.
We have a motion and a second to concur and place on file communication number 2023-308. Is there anything else on the question? Could commissioners please? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
12 yea, 0 nay.
12 yeas, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to item number 29, communication number 2023-309, Mark Neri, Public Works Director, requesting Council Commissioners authorization to purchase hollow property located behind the Public Works facility for storage. Total purchase price for the property is $151,644. Commissioner Reardon.
Second verse, same as the first. Basically, there is property out, and I'm not questioning you, Mark. You know how we all feel about the work you do. We just got to answer some questions to some people. It's basically this property located behind the Public Works facility for storage. Number one, how many acres on this property? I seen the appraisal, and basically is going to be used for storage. Could you evaluate on that, please?
Commissioner Reardon, Director Neri.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Reardon, BRW, where the crusher and the hot plant used to be,
right
down on Montana, we have just been there on a handshake since 1980, and that's part of the cleanup, so we have to move out of there.
Okay.
So the area which is directly south of the new county shops, it's 5 acres. It's actually attached to the property that we bought for the shops.
Okay.
And it'll be for storage for our stockpiles, our sand and our gravel and stuff. That is that now is in BRW.
Okay, great. And it will come out of the existing budget, correct?
Director Neri.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, Commissioner Reardon, Director Neri.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Reardon, yes, it's in the budget.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Neri. Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Is that directly south, and it's in between the shops and Beef Trail Road?
Commissioner Callahan, Director Neri.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Callahan, you got to turn around. It's to the north.
It's to the north,
Yes, I'm
okay.
sorry.
I was gonna say, south is floodplain.
Yeah, no, it's to the north, I'm
Okay,
sorry. Yeah,
thank you.
it's 5 acres directly north.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you, Director Neary. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Just to comment, we done the like for like on the shops. We kind of took a little beating there, we thought it was only 14, we got 12.5 or whatever. Now we got to move out of, where the smelter used to be on Montana Street, and now we got to spend $151,000, You think in some of this, that ARCO BP would be responsible for some of this, or Atlantic Ridgefield should be responsible for some of this, because it isn't, we didn't even really get a like for like. And this is just a comment. I don't expect no comments out of it. You know how frustrated I am with the services we're getting out of EPA and ARCO BP. And these are just things Butte-Silver Bow's spending money on. And, they're building stuff down in Missoula and down the way. And we're sitting here in Butte just paying for everything we need. And we're the Superfund side. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Anything else on the question? Commissioner Reardon, would you like to make a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
Chief Executive Gallagher,
Director Neary.
Commissioner Fisher, they're two, I agree with what you're saying, but they're two, the NRD was like for like, that was the state. And then BRW, where we're moving out, that's AR. So there are two separate deals there. So the like for the stockpile area wasn't part of the shop move.
Thank you, Director Neary. All right, Commissioner Reardon, would you like to make a motion?
Yes. I would make a motion to place on file, concurrent place on file communication number 2023-309.
We have a motion and a second to place communication number 2023-309 to concur and place on file. Is there a question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
12 yea, 0 nay.
12 yeas, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to Section 3, ordinances and resolutions introduced to judiciary. We have, I believe, 3. Resolution number 2023-22, resolution number 2023-23, and Council Bill number 2023-04. Please recognize those. Moving on to Section 4, ordinances resolution introduced for final reading. We have one, Council Bill number 2023-03. Clerk, please read the caption.
An ordinance amending Chapter 15.10 of Butte-Silver Municipal Code entitled Fire Code, specifically amending Sections 15.10.010, 15.10.020, 15.10.060, 15.10.070, 15.10.080, and deleting sections 15.10.090, 15.10.100, 15.10.110, and providing for an effective date herein.
Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to place ordinance number 2023-03 on final reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
We have a motion and a second placing Council Bill number 2023-03 and ordinance number 2023-03 on final reading. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
12 yea, 0 nay.
12 yeas, 0 nay, motion passes. Motion passes. Moving on to Section 5, ordinance and resolution for emergency suspension of the rules for final passage. Commissioner, we have 2 tonight, one that we added on, resolution number 2023-24 and Council Bill number 2023-05 and ordinance number 2023-05. Commissioner Frederickson.
Just a clarification, we already passed the suspension of the rules for the
All
ordinance.
right, so we just got to take action on this for final reading.
Well,
so
I still have to read it.
Okay, yeah, so we'll go to the final reading on this currently, correct? So that's where I got screwed up on this. So we'll do we'll go to Council Bill number 2023-05 for final reading. Clerk, please read the caption.
Let's see here. Ordinance number 23-5, and it is an emergency ordinance to repeal section 12.17.060 of Butte-Silver Bow Municipal Code, which requires a payment of $700 for the temporary use of a right-of-way for the placement of a parklet or pedlet for each season a parklet or pedlet is placed in the right-of-way. Although this emergency ordinance was not submitted by the deadline for the June...
We do that. So you just... Hey, kids like to read off their phones.
An emergency ordinance repealing section 12.17.060 of chapter 12.17 of the Butte-Silver Bow Municipal Code, BSBMC, requiring payment of $700 for the temporary use of a right-of-way for each season of each parklet, pedlet permitted or authorized in the city, county, and providing for an effective date herein.
Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to place ordinance number 2023-05 on final reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
We have a motion and a second to place Council Bill number 2023-05 and ordinance number 2023-05 on final reading. Is there anything on the question? Seeing none, could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
12 yea, 0 nay.
12 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Now moving to section 5, ordinance and resolutions for the emergency suspension of the rules for final passage. Resolution number 2023-24, Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move for the suspension of the rules for the purpose of passing resolution number 2023-24 by waiving subsection 7 of Rule 36 of the Rules of Order of Business of the Council of Commissioners, thereby having it considered for advanced passage without reference to the Judiciary Committee.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? Just give us 1 second. I think we just got to put that in. Yeah. Now could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 1 nay.
11 yea, 1 nay, motion passes. So moving back to resolution number 2023-24, clerk, please read the caption.
A resolution authorizing and approving the transfer of real property described as lots 1 and 2 of Plat 305-A located in section 26, Township 3 North, 9 West, Range 9 West, Principal Meridian, within the City County of Butte-Silver Bow, Montana, to Sterling Capital Investment Group LLC, a limited liability corporation, in accordance with the provisions of the Butte-Silver Bow Municipal Code and providing for an effective date herein.
Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to place resolution number 2023-24 on final reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
We have a motion and a second placing resolution number 2023-24 on final reading. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone, clerk, please record the vote.
12 yea, 0 nay. Yea, 0 nay.
12 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to calendar and other meeting events, please note all the dates of our meetings that are coming forward. Next, we'll move on to any public comment on any item not on the agenda tonight. Please come forward, state your name, address, and what you'd like to speak to us about. Seeing none, I will take a okay, you're okay? I didn't know if you, okay. So I was saying if public comment on any item not on the agenda tonight, you can come forward and state your name, address, and tell us what you're speaking to us about. Seeing none, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by aye.
Aye.
And those opposed?